Let's move on to the next speech. The next speaker will showcase how AI tools automate sales outreach and prioritize accounts, improving B2B sales efficiency and achieving impressive business outcomes. Let's welcome Agostino Calamia, a senior machine learning engineer, with the presentation how to scale B2B sales operations, building AI systems that sell better. Agostino, please, welcome.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming and listening. The title changed slightly. The topic is still the same. So it's multi-channel product recommendations that help you scale your B2B business, and obviously using Gen AI because it's fancy right now. Just a quick walkthrough. So we will start with a quick recap of what has been done in AI and e-commerce. Then I'll propose a new approach that we tried out in various companies that work quite well. We go through the system step by step to show you how you can implement it and how you can use it. And then in the very end, we talk a little bit about why it actually works and why it will be the solution for future B2B scaling approaches. Let's start with a quick recap. So what have we done so far? I think a bit higher? Yeah, perfect. So what have we done so far? I think there are three major topics that everyone... Sorry? Higher? Like this? Perfect. So there have been three major aspects or areas where AI and I think data and data science have had a huge impact on commerce over the recent years. So the first one is customer segmentation. So we can identify distinct behaviors across customers. We know their preferences, their demographics. We know how these different groups are actually behaving. And based on that, we can personalize our communication, right? I think most of us have worked with this, have been targeted themselves because they were segmented. The second part is the retargeting. Again, like this ties to the first aspect, where we have specific and targeted marketing. We can resonate with these groups and audiences and understand a little bit better how we can actually manage to convert them. And the last aspect, I think that's also something that we all have heard about, talked about, and also used it, is product recommendations, where we just get recommended relevant products. We try to increase the likelihood of buying a product just by recommending the right product. And this will ultimately enhance conversion rates and average order value, AOV, which is for many companies that sell very, very interesting. And again, just to wrap up this slide, this is stuff that's already out there that most companies use. There are tools for it, there are platforms for it, but they are not really interconnected, which is where the most potential nowadays lives. So let's talk about a new approach. And the new approach starts with a long sentence with a few buzzwords, but we'll break it down. So what we want to do is we want to recommend products across multiple channels based on customers' preferences in a cost-effective and scalable manner with generative AI. So that sounds like a lot to digest. That's why we break it down. Let's start with the key ideas of that approach and these sentences. First of all, it's multi-channel. So we don't want to use one channel, but Gartner recently launched a report emphasizing emphasizing the importance of multi-channel or omni-channel approaches to really convert users, because that's how the experience will look like in the future. The buying experience will be different from the buying experience in the past. And that's why multiple channels, it could be through an admin login, and then you see a home card. It could be email, it could be actual sales interactions. There are various ways to talk about it. The second aspect is also personalized outreach. I think all of us have received enough generic emails where we know, okay, this is not really just meant for me, but this is meant for a broader audience. And we want to focus and double down on personalized a little bit later, because that is where you can identify the actual need of a user and communicate a potential solution. Third point is scalable. That's super important. Like if you want to scale your business, you have to have an infrastructure that is scalable and also cost efficient. I think these two are very, very closely related. You don't want to scale your costs while scaling your outreach or your conversions, but you want to focus on having it cost efficient, but at the same time scalable. And these are the kind of the 4 key ideas that we propose in this solution. So let's talk about a system, and that will be the major part that we're going to talk about. I think now that the part that we've done so far is clarified, but also the idea or the vision behind the new approach makes sense, hopefully. We can dive into the system itself and how you could implement a system that would leverage these 4 key ideas. And we start with basic descriptive customer statistics. That's kind of the foundation you have to really know what your customer's about and how you can approach them, right? I think many companies think they are doing it, but in the end, this is the foundation. That's the major work we have to do. But how can that look like? So here we have a very simple table that we're looking at. So we have customers per row, and then for a B2B sales company, for example, we could have the very basic statistics that bring you really, really far already if you know how to use them. So here we are talking about the number of logins in the last 30 days, items bought, the same as average order values over different periods, right? So I would say most companies nowadays have this data somehow available. If not, that should be the first step. Second step is to define recommended products, and there are 1,000 ways to do it. I'm just proposing one that we implemented ourselves and one of my previous employers, which worked fine for us because the amount of products that we offered were not too many. Therefore, we used propensity scores. So propensity scores for each product, for each customer. That means we know customer A has a 77% likelihood of buying product A. That is helpful. We know, okay, this is kind of likely to be purchased or not. Like if we compare it to customer B, we see, okay, this customer is actually less likely to buy that product. The second interesting part are uplift scores. So uplift scores are a concept that were introduced by Uber a couple of years ago, and they have a great talk on YouTube about it. So if you're not familiar with the concept, I think it's very interesting to dive into it. And uplift scores are basically the quantification of how much impact outreach can have on a purchase behavior. So that means if we would reach out to this customer, by how many percent or like by how much can we improve the likelihood of a purchase, basically. And with that, for customer A now in that example, we would know what's the general likelihood and by how much can we influence the purchasing behavior. And these two information are super helpful because by that we can identify on what customers we want to focus on. We want to focus on the customers with a high likelihood that in the end they will buy, because there are also customers in our systems that are basically not going to convert or buy no matter what we do. So we want to focus on the customers that are really important to us in our business. Segment the customers. There, the first, or like actually the second part now comes into play. We talked about customer segmentation earlier, and we could segment them in a very basic way, right? Like this, again, is just a scrappy example I pulled up on a slide, but systems might be more sophisticated. In this case, we divide them into high average growth customers, which over the last few months or days have seen a high average order value growth. We have low activity users, actually twice, but yeah, overall, you can basically just segment them based on your business understanding. And that, again, also translates into the customer segmentation for products. So also, we know in which segments are customers that are likely to buy product A or product B. Okay, so we've done the foundation now. We understand our customers. We know how they are behaving and everything. And now we want to design a multi-channel retargeting engine. That's kind of the core piece that connects all the pieces and leverages the scalable infrastructure efficiently. And it looks like this. So we'll start with the user, so the little computer emoji. An example use case could be that the user logs in and sees a home card. So home cards are, when you log in into any of your apps or whatever, a little banner that is just promoting a product or an upgrade, or it could be whatever. And that content, in the first place, could be AI generated, right? So we have all the customer data in the background. We can plug it into whatever LLM and just generate this home card automatically. This, based with the customer segmentation information, would really give a personalized view from the customer's perspective, because they would seem, hey, this company really understands what I'm looking for or what I did over the last few weeks. Let's assume the user looked at the card, maybe clicked on it, interacted with it, whatever. That could be tracked, and then after like a couple of days or whatever time you want to like pass, then an automated email can be sent. So that could be, hey, we noticed that you looked at your home card for a while, or you even interacted with it. This is our offer to you. So there we start the multi-channel process, because the first part was the home card in the login, but we also took care of another channel to reach out via email and make sure, okay, this feels like a good experience, like a experience where our company really knows across various channels what the customer needs. Again, this is a very cheap solution, because you can generate it up front. You can like either think about hyper-personalizing it and have an email or home card for each customer and have an audience of one, basically, or you just use it by your customer segmentation groups, which are then broader groups. And if you have a sales team involved, that can be further leveraged, and you could create a sales cadence, like a recommended sales cadence, in which the sales team should reach out to that customer, or like other sales emails, or objection handlers, whatever. So you could also feed all this information that you just generated and the customer interactions via a Gen AI system into your sales team, so that you can enable them to reach out and sell better. No. Perfect. This could be an example how these home cards and emails could look like. It's very straightforward. This is obviously a fictive example. It's not real. But you could have the home card on the left, assuming that I logged in. I clicked on the shop item button. In the end, I didn't buy the shoe because, for whatever reason. But 2-3 days later, I receive an email and just see that shoe again. And maybe I will buy it then. If not, maybe I'll get a second email or another channel reaches out to me. So it could be very easy. The text is not complicated and is very, very straightforward approach. And then the interesting part are experiments, right? So if I go, or if we think about the individual components of the system, plus all the products, plus the segmentation groups, there are many components and assumptions that we make along the way. So we make assumptions that this message or this type of message goes really well with this segmentation group, but this all is just an assumption until we test it. So what I would recommend, or like what we did as well, is to set up A/B experiments where we test the impact of our current system and maybe our current sales process versus the new Gen AI created one. And there, we even differentiated it and talked about hyper-personalization, where every message is tailored to a customer, versus messages that were just like for a broader audience, but still somewhat personalized. And ultimately, turned out the best approach for us was the general approach in personalization. So we didn't go with the current approach, how we sold, but we also didn't go the route of hyper-personalization, because that was not adding any value and just adding complexity. So we met somewhere in the middle, and these A/B experiments that we ran were successful. We ran them for every product, we ran them for every channel, just to make sure this is actually working, because sometimes we also figured out that a certain channel is not working for a certain product, because there are different thresholds of when you would buy. Sometimes, like a shoe, I would buy it by receiving an email. Something more valuable, maybe not. And based on that, we ran many experiments to come up with the final solution. And why does it work? I think that's slowly coming to an end and explaining why this entire system actually makes sense, and it's not just like proposed by me. We have the first aspect, which is the interconnected multi-channel communication. As I said earlier, this is actually kind of an important factor that is often overlooked. Many people think, okay, we just schedule a sales cadence by email. So we write them an email, we write another email 3 days later, we write another email a week later. And we figured out, or also this Gartner report that I referenced, that this is not the way to go. It's more like about an experience that touches many channels, that could be in real life, that could be like through emails, it could be through home cards, and that this overall communication that you establish as a company is way more relevant than finding the right cadence or recommending the right product, because the customer buying behavior is changing over time and is becoming more complex just in general. Personalized but scalable messaging. That is what I just referred to. We saw some examples. The personalization aspect is becoming more and more important. We've received all emails that were very generic, and we definitely didn't buy just because we thought, okay, they don't know what they're talking about and why they're proposing this to me. So like finding that sweet spot between we're very personalized, but we can also leverage this for thousands of customers or like even more, is kind of the sweet spot every company or every seller has to find for themselves. And the last aspect that I already touched upon is fast experimentation. Once you've set up a system like that, it doesn't have to be exactly that system. It's super, super easy to experiment with it because you have the data in the background. You have all the data that you need living there. You have an integration into your Gen AI system that can be changed very easily, ideally, obviously, and then you can run different experiments. And with a setup like that, you just need to set it up once, then tweak the right parameters, and you can, as we did for all the products that we have, for all the customer segmentation groups and all the channels, you basically have a plug-and-play system in place that works really well to test various channels. And that's it. So that's a high-level summary about how you can scale your B2B business operations and make sure that you can use Gen AI in an efficient way and not just dump Gen AI-generated content onto your customers. And yeah, thanks.
Questions?
Hello, thanks for the presentation. There are some B2B commerce or some platforms that sometimes the customer preferences are always the same or are pretty similar during the time. So how can you combine a client that has this B2B platform to include some ML or AI solutions to try to improve these sales to these customers?
Yeah, so you basically mean the customer's preferences are quite stable over time, but how can you convince the platform to apply these strategies to actually put them in play? That's good. I mean, on the one side we have preferences, on the other side we also have buying behavior, right? You could think about a customer that is buying one product regularly, but you could convince them to upsell or cross-sell. These are techniques that many companies use, right? So you could maybe say, if that's an opportunity, hey, listen, we saw that you bought product A, but product B is actually a bit of higher value for you. So you could recommend that. Or you could say, hey, this is a completely different product that many of our customers also buy together. So even stable behavior doesn't mean that you cannot try to recommend something new, because the stable behavior implicitly would assume that your customer or the end buyer would know what's best for them, which they do not always know. So sometimes a cross-sell or an upsell, for example, could be a solution to test at least these channels.
Also, maybe the solution can be focused on the quantity of the products that can buy the customer, for example.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. There are various ways. Maybe you could also recommend, instead of buying every month, recommend them to buy every 3 months, because this optimizes your logistics or it's cheaper or whatever.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you. Any idea on how to calculate propensity scores in a B2B settings? B2B settings, I mean, where quotation or orders are not managed by a web-based system.
Can you repeat the question? So how do we calculate propensity scores for?
Yeah.
Just in general? Yeah.
Yeah, in general, in a B2B setting where orders doesn't come with a web-based system, but with mails or other systems.
I think that heavily depends on how many products you sell, right? So I've worked for a B2B company before that had few products, I don't know, around 10. It was very easy. Like we had basically a classifier for each product where we just said, hey, how likely is it to buy or how likely is it not to buy? And so that was very, very manual, just based on whatever behavior was meaningful. If you have, I don't know, hundreds of products for whatever reason, that becomes more complicated. Then, I don't know, maybe a recommender system comes into play, maybe like whatever gives you a good estimation. Whereas I would start also there with a batch of products, maybe a subsection to test it, and there you can think about like maybe classifiers for each of the products, and then at some point I would scale and more go towards like recommender systems that output you a probability. Yeah. But yeah, that's obviously like that depends heavily on what you're selling and then what like how many products you offer or for how many products you want to implement this system.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, if that's it, thank you very much, Agostino. It was a great speech.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for inspiring us. Thank you. Please.